Hello, and welcome to our presentation on robotics and the emergence of drone technology. I'm Justin Haight, and today I'll be joined by Katie Kisseljack, Morgan Cobb, Will Steinman, and Ross Wincord. Drones are unmanned aerial vehicles and are one of the most advanced equipments in the field of robotics, aeronautics, and electronics. Drone use is growing rapidly with applications across many essential industries. Let's begin.
So in order to best understand drones and robotics, I think it's important to understand them each individually and kind of see what they all entail. So robotics is actually the intersection of engineering, technology, and science to produce machines intended to substitute in for humans or replicate human action. The word robot actually comes from the Czech word for forced labor. When you consider the reason that robots were first made, this name is quite fitting. The robots were originally built to handle tedious, repetitive tasks. So think assembly lines. At the time, there were people that were working all these assembly lines, and everyone just kind of realized that if we had a machine doing these tasks, not only would it be faster, but it would be more effective and much more efficient. And the job you could make sure that the job was well done because the machine would be doing it. So this intention alone altered the industrial industry as we know it. And in 2005, 90% of all robots could be found assembling cars in factories. So since then, obviously, the usage of robotics has expanded much further than that. We see robots in all aspects of our daily lives, things like our Roombas cleaning our homes to robots that are actually assisting in surgeries, operating machinery such as cars and boats. So to me, the first thing I think of is Tesla self-driving cars, and also performing landscaping duties. So once robots really became like more embedded in our society, they gained traction in various industries, and pop culture was definitely one of those industries that became increasingly invested in robotics. The industry in and of itself became really enamored by the machines, and they added humanistic like character elements to them. So I would say most clearly we see this in movies such as Star Wars, Transformers, and Wall-E. What was once just an assembly line machine became something with a face, something people could associate with, something that people were fans of. People became fans of R2D2, they became fans of Wally. And so whether the intrigue of pop culture was the reason that the robotics industry exploded is definitely still up for debate, but it undoubtedly like exposed people to robots and also played a role in the growth of this industry because they became a lot more known, a lot more accessible, and people became excited about the robots themselves, the power that they had, and created sort of this imaginative world of what could be if money was really invested into this technology. And so I would say that seeing robots in pop culture really expanded the accessibility of robots in and of themselves. So in today's world, we're not really just programming robots to do particular things as they were originally built for. So it's not just this is a robot in an assembly line. It's supposed to attach the door to the door handle. Now, robots are also teaching themselves. So Brett is a UC Berkeley robot, and he actually taught himself to solve a puzzle where it's like a children's puzzle where you have to place the different shaped pegs into the proper holes. No one programmed him to say, this is how you solve this puzzle, but instead they provided positive reinforcement for him when he placed the correct peg in the respective hole. So Brett really learned how to solve this puzzle on his own. And although at face value it may seem, oh, this is just a robot solving a children's puzzle, just the idea of it in and of itself is a massive victory for the industry of robotics because if these robots are able to teach themselves certain tasks, that's less time that developers have to spend working alongside them. And it gives the industry more room to grow because the robots are sort of taking some of the weight off of the developers and they're learning in and of themselves how to perform specific tasks. So this can stretch far beyond solving a children's puzzle. So the possibilities for this are really quite limitless. So I think in order to talk about drones, you obviously have to first discuss robotics because, as I mentioned earlier, the robotics field was so evolving and changing, and drones are definitely one spin-off of the robotics field. So, unmanned aerial vehicle technology is the technology that covers the aerodynamics, circuit board software, and materials in the brain of the drone itself. So, that's sort of the technology behind drones. And traditionally, drones are made of light composite materials in an effort to reduce weight and make the drone more maneuverable by the pilot. There are various technologies embedded in the drone, such as GPS, lasers, infrared cameras, and the drones are controlled by a remote ground control system, short for GSC. Because of their unmanned nature, the variety of uses of that drones have is quite extensive, from photography to insurance to military strikes. Drones provide a safe way for their pilots to be able to operate them and perform necessary tasks. Um, as drones and drone technology have evolved, there's been a serious push towards making drones more accessible to consumers and cheaper to buy. So on the side on the left, you see a drone like that's a really really nice drone, but it's in the hundreds, thousands of dollars, and that's one that's built more towards your traditional consumer. But the one on the right is actually a military drone, and that's one that's going to cost billions of dollars. So while the range of costs in the industry is quite expansive, the technology within them is generally similar and including cameras, GPS, and lasers to assist in maneuverability. So next, Will's kind of going to talk to you guys more about drones and robots and what all that entails.
So with drones, there's a lot to unpack. While drones are not necessarily a new technology, they are one that have experienced an immense amount of development and change in recent years. As Katie mentioned when introducing drones, they have all sorts of uses and come in all different sizes. And while they prove to be useful in various fields ranging from agriculture to photography to military, there are also some drawbacks, of course. Before getting into the negatives of drones, I will be going over the positives that they bring to us. For starters, drones can either provide an entertainment aspect to people who use them as a toy, they can provide valuable information to military personnel or those in rescue missions, and they can offer videographers or photographers to capture unique angles for pictures and videos. A greater use is in a logistics sense, which has been the buzz around drones the past few years, but as of now, it's not exactly widespread. This will be discussed later in our presentation. Along with this, drones have provided an increased amount of accessibility in the areas in which they exist, as they're easier to deploy than manned vehicles or aircraft. You also do not have to put a person at risk by putting someone in the sky, as the drone will more than likely be controlled from the ground. Some of the most notable positives about drones is that they're generally inexpensive, quick to deploy, can work rapidly, and can collect accurate data while performing their tasks. Drones can be inexpensive as they're essentially a one-time expense, other than potential upkeep or extra parts. Once the drones are produced, it just takes the purchase of a drone by a consumer or company for it then to be deployed for its purpose. And since the technology we have today is constantly evolving, such as sensors, which help with data collection methods, these drones can collect necessary data for the process it performs. There are plenty of positives drones bring. As I said before, there are also negatives. In my opinion, the positives outweigh the negatives by far, but they're still worth mentioning. To start, drones have capabilities for being used in negative ways to cause harm to people or property. Obviously, this is an extreme version of a negative, but we have seen examples of this in recent years. Along with this, drones present privacy issues to people as they can access areas that someone may not be able to usually. And while this may be a rare case, it does happen, and people have gotten in legal trouble because of it. Another negative is since drones have started to become used more and more recently, there is yet to be any clear legislation regarding drone flight. People describe these troubles as growing pains. And although I said earlier that drones can be relatively inexpensive, the truly sophisticated drone technologies can be very expensive depending on the various components that go into each drone, the more expensive they can be. Speaking of cost, to give a rough estimate on drone costs, it is said that $2,000 would be enough to purchase a drone at the upper middle range in terms of quality and features. For those with a bigger budget, $4,000 to $5,000 would be enough to buy one of the best models in the drone industry. But as mentioned before, there are drones that reach into the much higher price points. For example, there's a crop spraying drone that costs around $15,000. And at the extreme price points, which is mostly military use drones, each drone can cost several $1,000,000, and some cost even up to $15,000 an hour to run. As far as notable successes or failures with how drone technology has been used, there are several on both sides. As far as failures or mishaps go, in October of 2015, a drone collided with some power lines in West Hollywood, which caused 700 homes to be without power. And while I personally didn't see any widespread failures across the technology as a whole, just minor incidents here and there. And as far as successes go, it mostly is the same story as the failures. There are a ton of smaller successes that happen frequently, but one larger scale success story is a project by DJI, one of the largest drone manufacturers. This project shows on a map where more than 500 lives have been saved thanks to drones. From here on out, you'll be hearing from a couple other of our group members on the various fields that you'll find drone in, the uses that they might have for us.
So now we are going to get into examples of how drones are used. I'm going to talk about 3 uses of drones, and Justin's going to talk about 3 more. And there are a lot more than 6 uses for drones, but we just chose 6 that stuck out to us the most. So drones are often used for agriculture, military, and delivery methods. Farmers use drones for terrain mapping, solar panel inspection, and livestock monitoring. They also use drones for photography of the farmland. Using drones for terrain mapping provides farmers with better management of the agricultural industry. Modern-day drones that have LiDAR, which is a remote sensing technology, are used by farmers to map the terrain across large areas of land as an inspection device for land preparations. This technology helps farmers accurately map the land and offer feedback for the organization and management of fields. Drones also offer livestock monitoring for farmers. AI-backed programmable drones are often used to monitor the livestock, which reduces the cost for farmers. The drones are used to keep track of the livestock and provide information on wounded or missing livestock. It also provides farmers with a way to keep track of their livestock in a timely manner because the drones can go across infinite amounts of land. Another use for drones is for delivering blood and medical supplies. Drones help to provide efficient healthcare to patients from a distance. For example, in Rwanda, doctors are able to order blood and medical supplies through text messages and have the supplies delivered to them by drones. Having the supplies delivered by drones allows for quick delivery processes. These drones are so fast that the patients in the hospital never even know that the hospital was ever low on blood or medical supplies. The drones travel up to 80 miles per hour and release at the designated delivery spot. Drones can also deliver vaccines and medications to places hit by disasters. This technology could allow people at home to have their medications dropped right to their doorstep instead of having to go to a pharmacy. Using drones to deliver these supplies ultimately reduces variability, cost, and error. The last example of using drones I will be discussing is drone use in the military. This is the most common place you will hear a drone being used. Drones are known as UAVs or unmanned aerial vehicles in the military. Drones are often thought of as being a weapon in the military, being used for attack and counterattack. However, drones are not just a weapon for the military. The military also uses drones for surveillance. Along with surveillance, drones are used for investigating areas such as pipelines, main gates, seaports, and more. The military also uses drones to keep borders protected and perimeters watched. The United States military is one of the best known countries when it comes to the use of drones. I've provided a picture of the different drones the military uses. All of the drones shown in the picture are built and designed differently and used for different things. There are micro and nano drones, which are insect-sized spy machines, small tactical drones, which fit in a soldier's pocket, medium-sized investigation drones, which are known as the workhorses, and large combat and surveillance drones, which are the most well-known type of drones. Military specialists have discussed and agreed that unmanned aerial vehicles or drones are the future of warfare. However, these drones are not cheap. Over the next 10 years, the United States is forecasted to purchase more than 1,000 combat drones. By 2026, the United States is forecasted to obtain more lightweight surveillance drones than the rest of the world combined. Although there are already rules put in place for military operating drones, experts hope to introduce more rules for autonomous warfare. However, when looking at drone technology itself, there's no serious attempt to stop development or production.
Drone use within the e-commerce industry is quickly emerging and expanding. The concept that a company could deliver a package from a store or fulfillment center directly to the front door of the consumer can not only reduce delivery times, but completely change the landscape of the home delivery process. Drones do not need to follow normal traffic routes. They do not take up space on roadways and are unquestionably more environmentally friendly than typical delivery vehicles. Amazon has made the biggest waves in recent years, as they have been experimenting with the use of drones to deliver packages directly to consumers through what they refer to as prime air. But they're not the only retailer looking into this technology. 90% of Americans live within 10 miles of a Walmart, which has led the massive retailer to begin experimenting with this concept of deliveries directly from their storefronts. However, before this technology can become widespread, the industry is facing challenges with full drone implementation, with regulatory concerns being one of the biggest obstacles to navigate. But it's not just delivery capabilities that make drones an exciting technology for companies who specialize in e-commerce. Drones are now being utilized within warehouses and other sections of the supply chain. Drones are being used for inventory management with the use of attached RFID or barcode scanners. These sensors allow for drones to track, measure, and move inventory remotely within a warehouse. Though drone use within the film and entertainment industries has been commonplace for a few years now, their role and utilization has expanded tremendously. Drones provide film, television, and sport producers access to aerial viewpoints that were previously very difficult or costly to obtain. At first, drones were advertised as an alternative to some helicopter filming capabilities. Though they could provide both high and wide angle shots, they were limited by altitude and weather conditions. However, as hardware has become more durable and software more sophisticated, drone cameras are pushing the boundaries of aerial cinematography. Though once shunned because they were difficult to fly, drones are now becoming far more common for any studio or professional filmmaker. In fact, studios are now employing dedicated drone pilots for filming, which has created an entire sub-industry designed around the use of this new technology. Lastly, we have a bit of a catch-all category that contains multiple related occupations within the construction and inspection industries. These professions have been profoundly impacted by the use of drone technology. Whether it be the future site of a new residential neighborhood or the construction of an urban skyrise, the construction industry relies heavily on mapping, surveying, and inspecting sites throughout the entire building process. Using drones over traditional manual methods for surveying and inspection is not only more affordable and faster, it also provides increased real-time data, which was previously unavailable or often difficult to obtain. Skycatch and Droneonomy are two companies offering software packages specifically designed to enhance construction project monitoring and site management. Additionally, because these actions are controlled remotely from the ground, worker safety has also increased tremendously. Take the occupations of a roofing professional or insurance claim inspector who needs to evaluate the condition of a large building or home after a storm. Previously, workers would need to physically scale the roof for inspection, often through the use of ladders or heavy lift machinery. Once in position, the inspector would have to rely on obstructed viewpoints to collect the required data. Now, these same tasks can be completed safely from the ground with detailed assessments provided through high-resolution drone cameras. It is unquestionable that drone use in these industries has saved tremendous project time and overall construction costs. These have been just a few of the many industries drone technology has begun to impact and reshape.
Ever since the introduction of drones from the field of robotics, one can argue that the world has been impacted for the better. Agriculture, medical, military and police, e-commerce, Hollywood and sports, construction, and many more industries have utilized drones to expand their businesses and further influence the people of society in a better way. Without drones, their jobs would have been more difficult. The police would be unable to locate lost hikers, the military unable to retrieve crucial information, medical organizations and logistics will have a harder time sending supplies, etc. A recommendation for organizations adopting the use of drones is to encourage drone legislations to be signed into law. If drones are regulated, it will be easier and safer for industries to operate their drones for themselves and the people.